Okay, the live stream, by the way, is working now. So that's good. Alejandro, what's Florida like at this moment? Is it is it muggy? Is it humid? Alejandro, can you hear me? Hey, can others hear me?
I can hear you, Jay.
Okay.
Everyone
So,
can hear you.
Yeah.
okay, Alejandro, can you hear me? Oh, okay, we're gonna start a little late while Alejandro gets the sound worked out. There you go. Hey, Alejandro, can you hear me? Huh. So yeah, everybody else can hear me and I can hear others, but I can't hear you. Hi, Anastasia. You know what we can do? Alejandro, how do you feel about this? Oh, he can't hear me. Alejandro.
Write it in the chat, Jay.
Maybe.
Or not. You tried.
I don't know that we can hear you though, Alejandro. I think that's the problem.
Test, can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. We got it. Got
I
Okay.
can
it.
hear you.
Got it. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Alejandro, we will start with you. It is opening night. It is the day after solstice. Happy belated solstice, everybody. Thank you for a great first 2 days of residency. This evening, Alejandro, Matt, and V will blow our minds. Tomorrow night, Sarah Sutter and I will be reading in Lemelson, which is downstairs. We won't be reading in 413. And then on Sunday night, we have a very special evening with Stephanie Adams Santos, Scott Nadelson, Dal Strom, and Pupe Masagi will be reading at the Independent Publishing Resource Center. And just a reminder, that is a mask required event. We will have masks on hand in case you forget. But that is a policy of the Independent Publishing Resource Center, and we support it. Okay, without further ado, Alejandro de Acosta is a teacher, a writer, and translator, still in no particular order. His most recent teaching includes private tutoring in literature and philosophy. His most recent writing includes a manuscript of poems and a novel, finally. His most recent translation include poems by Macedonia Fernandez, Alberta Lyseca, and Paula de Joly. Alejandro lives in Gainesville, Florida. Let's welcome Alejandro.
It's time to start, yeah. This is such a unusual way of doing things, and I'm going to have to very quickly figure out what the problem is because I don't want to miss Matt and V. Nice to see everybody. This is called Two Scenes, the Second of Backy Blue and Victoria. There were two scenes, and in the first scene, there were two rooms. The second scene had no rooms as it unfolded out of doors. But in the first scene, Alciphron had come to a meeting room. It was always about the plastic arts in these dreams. And in the first room, some were working with clay, making small bowls and little bud vases out of clay. But everyone managed to do something else for as long as they could, biding their time in the room and the scene, biding their time as the dream collapsed outside. Alciphron was witness to a staged debate between two maidens. Well, all debates are staged in some sense, unless they're spontaneous back and forth, but those are brief and rare. Even in a dream scene, no one knows how to hold their own, much less listen. One maiden with frizzy hair called the other an abortress. The other maiden sat open-mouthed and stunned. "It's a baby, a little baby," said the frizzy-haired maiden. After a long pause, the other said, "It's," and reached into her mouth and snapped her hand back out, showing an imaginary thing between her tensed fingers. "Tooth pulled." A swart man leaned in between the maidens, holding a microphone he had fashioned out of clay, passing it back and forth, trying to accelerate the debate with thoughtful nods he had learned from newscasters. The frizzy-haired anti-abortress had a natural charm that made her case more convincing, though as Alciphron ran through his thoughts on the matter, he found no original ones. Though it was a dream scene, he had the presence of mind to realize this was the case for most political debates. The most that can usually be said is that one has been a witness to something or other. Sometimes another debate, sometimes a scene of cruelty. In this case, the frizzy-haired maiden was playing a part in a mock debate in a dream scene, but at the same time, Alciphron knew she meant all of it, that there was a warning here for him as well, as witness, about abortresses. So why pretend to debate? Why call names? In the future, one would abort, like tooth pulled. And here in the dream, she was receiving her name, the murder witnessed ahead of time by the frizzy-haired woman, whose name then must have been Hannah. Alciphron turned from Hannah and the abortress, and as if awaiting him, there was another swart man showing him a crude pencil drawing of a city street. On the street, long cars were depicted mid-cruise. On the sidewalk, young toughs floated in frozen strut and stride. In awkward, puffy letters, the artist had placed "the streets" up in the clouds over the scene as a title or legend. The artist poked his nose over the paper and said to Alciphron, "The streets," where it all goes down. To which Alciphron replied, "Who are you, and how do you know this?" Meanwhile thinking, and yet here we are, indoors, upstairs, drawing the streets, not on the streets, My name is Dulgas, said the swart character. Is that Douglas? Replied Alciphron. No, Dulg ass, said the same. And Alciphron realized that was also meant as an answer to how he knew what he knew. On one of the meticulously drawn walls, though the drawing was amateurish, there was a lot of care put into the brickwork of each wall. He could now read Dulg ass and could see that the same had placed his own caricature beside the graffito in frozen strut and stride, one hand toting the spray paint can that had presumably just finished its fine work. Had Dulg ass been to the street or the streets? Alciphron was still in the first room of the first scene, and yet things were moving along. Hannah to Dulgas to a long-haired man he recognized as a one-time friend, or at least cellmate. You know how it gets in these indoor spaces. The tall one reached over Alciphron's shoulder to Dulgas and snatched a pencil. Dulgas complained, and the tall man reached out one long arm to hold him at bay, while handing Alciphron the pencil. What do you say? See this pencil? Replied Alciphron. Now I hold it in my hand. Now I close my eyes. You can go on feeling its resistance to my grip, your grip, weak or strong, but allow it to change size. It can be any size now. Let's say it grows. Let go with your fingers and wrap your arms around it. You're freaking me out, said the tall man who was Thorn, who was almost gone as he held Dulgas at bay still. Dulgas complaining and batting at his long arm, Thorn saying to Alciphron, you're freaking me out, man. Man ends the first room of the first scene, and now Alciphron may pass to the second room. But Alciphron does not pass. It's a dream, one supposes. He's already there, and so is another Dulgas. Or Dulgas no longer swart, now gray-skinned. More instruction in the arts. Now it's design, and the instructor is an invert who loves a book named Problem Solution. There was only one copy, and it was on his desk. The invert poses problems but hides solutions. For example, the problem could be the streets, or the solution could be the streets. But then what would the problem have been? The invert shows interest in strange things, such as how people sit in chairs. He is averse to anyone leaning back, even a little bit. The second less than 2 legs touch the floor, he rushes over to straighten out the chair. This is odd, given the event hinted at in the dream that years later the invert will be discovered in a compromising position in a lurid place. The solution to that problem was perhaps withheld from him. Or inversion was the problem and arrest was the solution. Back in the second room, Gray Dulgas is arguing with a clownish fellow about music. There is a ghetto blaster, and Gray Dulgas wants to play Liszt music, the music of the streets. The clownish fellow, whose name is Toohey, is playing his awful carnival music. There is a brief distraction while the invert either displays or feigns ignorance about carnival music. Everyone knows roughly about what carnival music is, and so one presumes the invert is up to no good. He asks Toohey about some carnival music act, and the clown says, it's the ultimate headphone music. Gray Dulgas interrupts and stops the tape, says it is not right for this room, it is not right for this dream, it is not right for problem solution, looking over at the invert. We need Liszt music. Aside on Liszt music, the first thing you notice is that there wasn't singing. There wasn't really even melody at first, just syncopated rhythms and voices. The voices were the most prominent. What were they doing? They made the doll interesting. Or at least this is what the Liszt music did for its growing cohort of fans. The voices recited lists. Sometimes it was one guy making a list of what he had in his house or in his car, or a list of what he was wearing, or of everyone he knew. Liszt music could be political, as in a list of demands, or it could be grisly and violent, as in a list of people killed and how each one died, almost a kind of autopsy report. And in fact, the Liszt music blended wonderfully with bureaucracy, as listers went for reports or any documents with lists to copy their style and incorporate it into the list. After a few years, you couldn't walk down the street without hearing a list. People would blare the lists out of boomboxes or souped-up car stereos. Eventually, there came some backlash that it was mild. As a sort of response or long-term survival strategy, the Liszt music mutated and incorporated some computer-generated melodies. Aside on carnival music. I couldn't tell what was wrong with carnival music at first. It was everywhere, on the radio, playing in stores, booming from cars. When I was young, the kids my age seemed to like it, though it was the music of our parents' generation. Maybe no one really liked it. One day, a carnival band would play a concert in a stadium, and the next day, half of the kids at the industry were wearing t-shirts with some gaudy carnival scene depicted on it. I would go from meeting to meeting. The kids in front of my desk rotated. The carnival scene did not. I tried not to breathe in the shirt factory smell, but with so many kids in the room, it was overwhelming. The windows were closed. Outside, it was snowing. Do you understand what a strategic location is? That was the teacher. We were stuck with the carnival music. Bands would keep trying to do something new and just come up with worse and worse variants of the carnival music. Not organs, but synthesizers. Younger kids who imagined themselves to be rebels played carnival music faster and faster with more and more distortion. But in the end, that's all it was, a dying thing, and the radio never played the new music and never stopped playing the old carnival music. A slinky woman named Victoria proposed a compromise, holding up a tape. She had a rare recording, a special kind of carnival music that included many lists, but her pleas fell on deaf ears, Dolgas refusing to believe that list could be delivered in any other kind of music, Toohey insisting on classic carnival music. Alciphron saw that this would all go on interminably and was a recurring loop in the first scene. Possibly the aborturous debate in the first room was the same, except that he had been pulled out of it by distraction. And now, Backy Blue swung into the room, ignoring all the talk, ignoring the plastic arts and design itself. Backy Blue shifts the room and thus the scene to present. Backy Blue wearing a dark green wool turtleneck. So it has been winter in these scenes, although the pencil drawing depicting the streets showed a summer scene. Backy Blue comes closer and closer to Alciphron and pulls him in. Is she the same height as Alciphron or even a little taller? Is her height or the straight black hair pulled into a high ponytail? Her pale skin, hint of amber, her aquiline nose, hint of amber. She pulls him into her, and the embrace says quietly into his ear. In the embrace says quietly into his ear, says Alciphron, you are so stiff, relax. And she continues to hold him in that scene and in that room, though that is not what anyone is there for, not plastic arts or design or even the argument about music, if that is what it is. It may not be music at all. Why even is Backy Blue at this meeting? And yet she brings him in by tightening her long arms, and at once Alciphron does relax, fades forward into her. Better, says Backy Blue, and dances away out of the room and out of the scene. Then Victoria is at his side, and together they exit the room. The second scene has no rooms, though it does have a small container, and that is a little car that smells like smoke and sounds like tapes. It is Victoria's carriage, and Backy Blue is in the passenger seat. Alciphron is in the back, and this is a little unexpected. He knows them from the rooms of the first scene, but he does not know them out of doors, out of rooms. They drive a short distance to Victoria's house, and this is where the pair begin to smoke cigarettes with bright eyes. Victoria brings her tape from the car to a ghetto blaster, but it is not the tape from the room. Energized by the music, but what kind of music is it exactly? She runs into the house and soon emerges with 7 grapefruits and a cleaver. She insists that Backy Blue throw one grapefruit and then another and another as she tries to use the cleaver to chop them in midair. Backy Blue and Victoria laugh and laugh as the sun shines down on the cleaver mid-swing. Sometimes an entire grapefruit lands behind her, and then she tosses it back to Backy Blue. As they do this, their clothing seems to have been prepared for the occasion, something like a tennis dress, but black with green and blue highlights respectively. Sometimes Victoria's aim is true, and she slices into the grapefruit, its juice spraying all around her, the air, her dress, her face, and 2 unequal halves land behind Victoria somewhere. Backy Blue is doubled over with laughter. Victoria laughs and falls over onto her behind. Her legs spread instinctively, and she laughs and says, I forgot I was wearing a dress, one hand stroking the dark blue tights. For a moment, Alciphron sees in her eyes the girl she once was and still is. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Alejandro, thank you so much. Terrific reading. I don't know if you can hear us or not, but that was fantastic. Let me just get this. All right. Matt Hart. Matt is the author of 10 books of poems, most recently Familiar, published by Pickpocket Books in 2022. His work has appeared in American Poetry Review, Big Bell, Kenyon Review, and Poetry, among others. The recipient of a 2024 Individual Excellence Award in Poetry from the Ohio Arts Council. He edits the journal Solid State and plays in the post-punk indie rock band Never Knew. Let's welcome Matt.
All right. Hey, everybody. God, that reading by Alejandro was absolutely amazing. Totally zany. Everything just spiraling out of control. So he's giving the Marx Brothers a run for their money. I'm going to read some poems. And I was freaking out earlier about what to read first. And I was trying to, I wanted to like come in with a bang, but instead you have this. Hello, Matt Hart. Hello, Matt Hart is a quote from a book, and hello, Interior of the Sun is also a quote from a book by the same author, but the books are very different. It's good to be different. Sometimes I get confused, the author and the other, and whether I'm Matt Hart or a burning fusion reactor, feeling the lightly falling snow on my cheek or the weight of young cherry trees secured against hairs. I am indifferent to the cherry trees and hairs, but not to the invisible world. Hello, ancient shroud, and hello, Andre Breton, since I didn't say it before, but there you were and are, your flagrant heart, a bitter cuckoo for God. And speaking of God, hello, Taylor Dawson. I'm sure you'll appreciate my angelic horde, even now, stealing 1,000 bicycles and launching themselves with their fiery swords forged in the crucible that is my Holy Spirit again and again against the wall of the New Yorker. Actually, I've never submitted poems to the New Yorker. It isn't my reader, you are. And by you, I mean everybody else, but mostly Taylor Dawson and my dead friend and a few other living ones. Hello, Dobby Gibson. In the next line, erudite rhymes with meteorite, and these are my own words rather than the more typical ghost-written ones that beg the question of authenticity without any irritable reaching after fact or reason. Hello, John Keats, in your uncertainties, mysteries, doubts. I have 2 cases of diabolical IPA in the fridge, so chances are good I won't remember saying hello to you tomorrow. And when I open this document, it will be a great surprise. Hello, Dean Young, in your amazing suit of ashes. What haunts every greeting is eventually goodbye. Narrative. The dog shows the blanket he's the boss of gray blankets and all the other colors too by instantiation. Blankets don't fight back, but they do sometimes cover over, making it hard to breathe. I think I'm a minor in poetry, or be a minor poet, I say to the essay I'm reading on the screen. The poet John Wieners was a solitary tree, a pine, I bet, or a juniper bush, if not. My critical analysis of everything I love makes me love it a lot less, so I've stopped myself from pulling the wings off and the whiskers. Jay wanted to know at the meeting this afternoon what we'd each eaten for breakfast, and Alejandro said the sun. I said a handful of blackberries and some vitamins, which made my stomach hurt my hangover. I don't know what's worse, giving a reading with COVID or giving COVID to everyone at the reading. I should know better or know the difference. My eyes bleed tricycles. My lobsters gently boil. I don't want to see your band, but I think that you should see mine. I'm normative that way, an asinine, but not a fascist or an ulcer burning brighter than a stadium. Mike showed up at the bar yesterday with a gift copy of a rare Robert Duncan for me. Now my eyes have seen the glory of his Stein imitations, Frankenstein and Gertrude's Scream, Shishito Peppers, Globules, Jess Pedrosa's Thesis, bonkers how the day gets away with its dailiness. So I decide to keep running for another 20 minutes, or I decide to keep writing for another 20 sentences. Of course, they're lineated. I'm a poet, not a narrator. I hope to finish eventually the YouTube black math rabbit hole and plant my internal trim pot in your boosted roasted chicken, whoever you are, or wherever your couch is. That is, it's hard to do right or do well without a theory. It's hard to have a theory without a bag of transistors. If you don't believe in ghosts, your vocabulary suffers. My vocabulary suffers enormously. Somehow there's an energy on the other side that carries the dead to the living and versa vice, or I want to believe that, and that one can experience it by not trying to experience it or by finding it ubiquitous, so not very interesting and therefore extraordinary when it happens accidentally. Trazodone sounds like a razor trapeze. Liminal dream being scratched by a cat. The girls will be home any second from the gym. We will eat the sacred beasts that we ordered from a bag. The syntax is ambiguous and sentient. How blotto it is to be an online figurine, a content creator in spite of all resistance, though content is never how I think about a poem. The process which is fleeting, I am not for surfaces, not in favor of the ease. Pornographic, Ragnarok, consumable, combinical, reductory, phylactery, philosophic, puffer fish, ball and socket, hip displacement, a description of a style. A story to tell is a story being told, unfolding in the process of going on, growing old, ending up soldered many pages in a row. Horizons and faults. Pink suns in the sea, a little bit of foam to wipe from a mouth, and a lucky cloud to cover it, regardless of the words. Sometimes to end is the right wrong way. When it falls off a cliff, I like it better. Fears in solitude. You can figure out how this has anything to do with the Coleridge poem of the same name, or if it does. Formally speaking, the floodwater, the paper machete, the paper swan, the wine-drinking Hoosier, formally speaking like nobody else in the courtyard, your hair up in a complicated bun, the echoes of ghosts, the repeating ghost echoes, formally speaking, a spirit isness, is just zero, ISIS, California, small intestines, pencil drawings of lines overlapping schematics, formally speaking. I am not a phobic or the carcass of a rabbit, but I do dream the dreams of diabolical men. Grain silos, missile silos, millions of news flashes, people running naked across a football field at halftime, not because they must, but because they can, and also because, formally speaking, all the signs say not to. The page is red, the robin is green fruit, the Satan is a professional sack of wheat germ, and someone's balls dangling over the edge of the Red River Gorge, where a family is having a picnic of roasted squab and chanterelles with white wine and white napkins, but the squab isn't too happy about it, or the squab is a squash. So everything is fine, and the family is a team of rescue dogs licking the sky, which is very much heavy duty, but the rocks, which are floating in the air like cotton candy on the moon, are too light, obviously, and the dog family is still licking paradise Paradise, Indiana off the map, and they are licking your underwear too, even to ribbons of its former glory where, formally speaking, the soap dish of your emotional life carries a lot of weight with the people in the nursing facility, but not with the astronauts you've been biting when they pet you, formally speaking. A black eye for literature, formally speaking. A genius in training, plum-colored lipstick, hand sanitizer, Kalashnikov, deer meat, deer chief, wooded area, parking lot, pork butts, force fields, Death Stars, crash carts. Formally speaking, the day ended differently or started all the same. Tuxedo leaking duckles of blood, the other hospital, the birthday, and the final one. Formally speaking, one and the same. Formally speaking, the best of blank verse, love, and all the thoughts of humankind. My daughter Agnes just graduated from high school. She's going to college at OU in the fall to study art history, despite what this poem says. And maybe despite her own objections initially. This is called A Natural Ardor. When one animal bites another on the neck, it's usually not a good sign for the animal being bitten into. Just like when one company bites into another by buying up all its stock for a majority stake so it can bleed its competition and extend its reach like a wire brush nostril. Suddenly, the Red Sea pours over the top of Pharaoh's army, that is, at least figuratively, in the Old Testament, which is all retribution and promises to God's children. God is good, somebody says, but always that goodness is complicated. What all of this has to do with you and me is frankly not clear yet. What I do know is that after 2 days of being standoffish, Bear, my dog, finally ate the food in his bowl. He must have been hungry since there are no baby gazelles or chickens in our living room running around for him to bite down on with that wild look in his eyes that he gets whenever anyone comes to the door. Bear is a good dog, someone says, except when he's not, or on one of his hunger strikes, or loose running the neighborhood having escaped us. The prodigal dog doesn't come when we call, so anything with Bear is always complicated, but not in the same way that God's goodness is complicated. I was talking about this with Agnes when she received the good news that she got a full tuition scholarship to Ohio University and admittance to their honors college. Congratulations, Agnes. But she will turn it down, she tells us later, with a lot of pomp and circumstance, because OU's in a rather isolated small town in southeastern Ohio, and she wants to study art history in a big city. She thinks the prestige of the school she ultimately chooses, and whether it's situated in a hard-hearted metropolis near art world type people and museums galore, will make a massive difference both now and in the future, even though we know it doesn't really matter where you get your undergraduate degree, nor really what you study, unless you're trying to learn to take a giant bite out of someone else's neck. Things aren't always so cut and dry, or dog eat dog, or God eat God, or maybe they are, or at least more so than we'd like to admit when the world is always clamping down its fangs on the meek. They shall not inherit the earth, very clearly. Inheritance in economic terms is a privilege of the rich, and we are not that. But we aren't meek either, so what difference does it make one way or the other? Clearly, we're in the middle of something, but it feels like the end, and God is not good. Or maybe everything isn't always a matter of good and bad, or right and wrong, or black and white, or opaque and transparent. Maybe God's irrelevant, or God's a good dog, or God is dead meat with a wild, gamey look, biting down hard on a part of us that's soft. I'm just going to read a couple more. Maybe three, because I'm going to read this really. I write short poems too. This one's called Frost Pink, Gold Light, Fallen Ash. snowshoe chalk, apple pie. Frost pink, Robert Frost. Gold light, Goldilocks. Fallen ash, little boy. Snowshoe chalk, frost again, apple pie, 3.14, etc. Resignation problem. First, I wrote 20 some odd lies just to scrap them. I meant 20 some odd lines, but who's counting? I guess I am, and also the people who monitor how many copies I make on the machines. I resigned today my contract, but somehow it kept showing up as re-signed. So now I'm sitting rather anxiously by my living room window, listening via my hearing aids to the birds and thinking they sound great again all over America, which for Walt Whitman was leaves of grass, but for me is a lyrical ballad of global capital churning out the souls of the damned like an ever-growing clutch of snakes, all balled up and ready to be snakes, the way the streets are on fire, like streets on fire. I didn't make that last simile up. Brett told it to me, quoting someone else. So now I'm an echo of an echo of an echo who's deteriorating. And I don't mean that only metaphorically. If I told you all the things wrong with my body, you would wonder how I'm still something more than a puddle of blood pudding, and I would wonder if I should make an appointment with my doctor. But then I think, at least I have a doctor, so that makes me lucky enough to not make an appointment. Obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know if this is serious. What I do know is that I'd love to quit everything. My morale is awfully low. So many others have found a way to move on, but I am with the snakes on fire on a planet on fire, a cancerous knot on the rectum of a wreckage, waiting for the courage to sever. And this is my last one. Thanks, everybody. It's so nice to be back here again and see people. And my God, I love Alejandro and V, so it's great to be able to read with them. This is called Personal Poem number 13. It has an epigraph from Noel Cocott, which is, "We must lose ourselves in the indecipherable." Personal Poem number 13. Reading the wrong things or reading things wrong. My head feels baked in a cup of instant coffee. We started drinking it in London, and now we can't stop. How lucky to go to the clouds with all my problems, which are minor amazements for them, of cholesterol mildly elevated and blood sugar a little wackadoodle. How does anyone spell the unspoken when it's staring at them in the mirror? I don't know, but I'm trying too hard to stay an age I haven't been for more than 25 years, and I've been selling off pedals and amps again now that Black Plastic closed and I lost my record store job, which was extra cash keeping me afloat and maintaining the possibility of new sonic exploration. In the meantime, Agnes has finished her college applications, and Melanie is 1,000 CrossFit workouts into beaming like a sunflower orbiting Mars. I just keep walking the dog in a circle to pee on things. That is, he's peeing on things, not me. I do all my mark making in contexts like this one, which is a problem that's better than drinking too much or being a washed up glam rocker, but worse than having a regular haircut and a job that pays a living wage. I don't know why I'm being so morose. There are raspberries in the refrigerator, not even hyphenated despite my best efforts. And this year, I officially officiated Russell and Alex's wedding without messing it up. I managed to write some super warbly, pixelated, falling apart songs, and Jesus Christ, I'm sitting on 1,000 poems that no one wants to publish, but they keep appearing anyway, mostly disguised as the poems of Dean Young, still raving from the grave. Also, Mike and I started a new magazine called Solid State, which I photocopied at work without asking anybody other than the aforementioned Holy Son of God. And thus, my prayers were answered by me and my copy machine credentials, which are 79601, if anyone would like to use them. I'm into sharing too much with everybody, or at least it seems that way from this bewilderingly long distance. But really, we're so much closer than the limitations here indicate. How a wild, vast meadow sprawls out before us. So many things we can be, say, and do. So many chittering, undulating dimensions, creative ways to lie about the facts, to tell the truth. Thank you.
Matt, thank you so much. Beautiful reading. That was amazing. And thank you for the copy code also. Beautiful. All right. Our next reader, let me just do this. Hello, V.
Hi,
Our
Jay.
next reader is Vicky now. V is the author of many books and is known for her work spanning poetry, fiction, play, film, and interdisciplinary collaborations. Her forthcoming novel, The Italian Letters, is scheduled for publication by Melville House in 2024. In the same year, she will release a co-authored manuscript titled The Six Tones of Water with Sung Yoon Shin through Ricochet. Recognized as a former Black Mountain Institute Fellow, V received the Jim Duggins PhD Outstanding Mid-Career Novelist Prize in 2022. Let's welcome V.
Thank you, Jay, for the introduction. Thank you, Matt and Alejandro, for reading. And thank you for everyone for being here. As stated in my bio, I'm going to read excerpt from the Italy Letters, which is coming out this August. This one, it's the Six Tone of Water, which I co-wrote with Sung Yoon, is coming out August 6th, and this is August 13th. So a week apart. I feel like they're twins. So the Italy Letters. I do not know if this friendship has an ending. If there is an end for us, or if this epistolary letter a way of saying goodbye to a future early. As you already know, I am in Vegas with my convalescent mother. My mother doesn't want to die slowly, but rather quickly, the way my mentor passed in her sleep. My mother's death wasn't a cat drowned in a pool of light. I do not believe her death was quick. She had an interior, torturous 67 years old life, which led me to believe that was how she formed her endless compassion and love for me so early. I am in Vegas in the early morning. I wrote you, and when you woke up, you wrote back. You asked me in the early morning if I worked better at night. I told you that Vegas was gorgeous and that I worked well when no one was around. Anyway, that's from the Italy Letters. I hope it excites you into getting a copy. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. You can get this one instead. This one is called The Six Tones of Water. I wrote this manuscript with Sun Yun over a period of 3 months. And we came away with a almost 100-page one long poem. And I'm not going to read that one long poem here in one sitting here for you, but I'll read an excerpt. This one starts on page 27. Why do I resist writing in sentences? Is it about starting or finishing? Is it about suspicion of meaning altogether? About the desire for metal savings to find a mother magnet arrangements, a bouquet of metal, or curses of incompletion? They assure it wasn't an ethnic weapon, my words not bulletproof to time. My torment, I assure you, isn't guileless. Ethereal snow travel in a spacecraft, and the rifle opens a page in its Middle West for me. Highway 6 becomes the valley of South pollination. I don't weaponize my memory. I memorize my weaponry. Take a spacewalk with me. Umbilicus, industrial, space grade, the bubble around our heads made real. Touchlessness, weightlessness, soundless, the bicycle unrolls its disobedient wheels across the asphalt. The banana leaves expand their upper torso. Ghost wrote an essay called The Yellow Woman. My race isn't an unfamiliar sight, a door into invisibility, an Orientalism retranslated into everyday objects of temporality. When my mind splits the veins open, verdant light surrenders as dead offensive or seeking that mẫu thân. What is revealed from this soft knife? That the human heart is made primarily of mẫu, which is pretty close to mẫu, and even closer to mẫu bin, a gambling addiction. A soft knife, a soft palate, a soft mask. That's everything that turns you inside out. What doesn't have names, that is your name, your sin, your fetish, your bling. Who was the last Korean person to touch me when I was still a Korean speaker and nothing else? As I was born into Korean hands. A single plentitude of blindfolded rage. Can I die in them, my own? I will catch my own death and carry it for me. My father's amputated legs was buried in his grave before he died, so he could walk in the afterlife. While he was alive, they were taken bit by section. I'm not sure exactly when or in what order because I wasn't talking to him. He has been sending me and everyone emails about how immigrants are stealing American jobs and bringing crime and degradation, etc., into our communities. Exop pipe of white griffins, not much such a new American himself, Ireland, German, modern day France. Borders move over our ancestors like a veil, dragging our names across a field of stubble. Names crumble and reform, misshape, then soothe. You and I mediate between two poles of exile. I am an orphan of calligraphy. My mother is resin and pigment, and you reside under a family of aesthetic force. And our aesthetic identity dressed for authoritative parables. Remember that euphoric marriage between madness. And I recognize my own depression in beef and in rice. First water, second fertilizer, third diligence, fourth variety. 4 elements arranged in the order of significant degree involved in the production of rice. Like the way air or nhức nước is recognition of tapioca, nhị phân flour in rice, tam cường flour, vegetable tứ giống oil in room temperature water. Chó chạy gần nhà. So I could sit at the bottom of food chain in my micro hammock eating sushi and ecology eating philosophy and zoology with my mouthful of gas standing in the ethnic center of immigrant spontaneity. I chạy, I gần. I do the hybrid sea with my memorial fishtails. Such monstrosity of beauty makes my animal logic melancholic. The world disguises her barrenness in rice. I thaw out my childhood on a plate of noodles. It is radical agency to bake forgiveness in rice entanglements. I use the chopsticks to express my sublime dissatisfaction with the ghost in the shell. I refuse to believe the refugee of my barren beauty, the soft slope of my neck against the bamboo infant of self-reflection, my language mobility. I clothe my pale paradise with your diphthongs and ethereal or sonic or not. I water this language, this very Pacific language, with the filament of a film. Tampopo, tampopo, tampopo. I teach the film how to slurp, how to breastfeed an infant, how to squeeze a grapefruit, croissant, cheese, and butter ovoids with my bare hands. I teach the film how to eat oysters with my entire mouth pressed against a half bookshelf. An albatross wing from the distant, the sound of Asiatic femininity flapping in the synthetic vases created an ex machina melody. We watch its silhouette, temporal and endless, a yellow passing between eternity and identity. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, V. Wonderful reading.
Yeah.
How about another round of applause for all of our readers tonight? Alejandro, Matt, and V, let's give it up. Thank you. Wonderful opening. Y'all, we're just getting started. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. out on the East Coast. We'll see y'all. Good night.